Let's cross to Canberra now, where I'll catch up with Liberal MP Zoe McKenzie. Thanks for joining us, Zoe. A big day in Canberra. Not too much of a focus on Baku and the COP conference, although Labor under fire for not signing up to this new domestic or civilian nuclear energy agreement with the UK and US.
Although it looked a little bit like had signed up and then whoopsie, better not sign up. So obviously there was a draft, in fact an issued statement that had Australia named in it as committed to a future nuclear energy in Australia, and then somehow it got scrubbed overnight and now it doesn't mention Australia at all. So Labor's got a very clear position, which is nuclear energy, nuclear power, nuclear reactors are great next to the heads of our sailors and submariners, but not so great if they're powering Australian industry on the mainland.
Yeah, it's just embarrassing for them. It makes them look like a bunch of troglodytes, and the UK and the US must be very confused by our nuclear good, nuclear bad positioning. Now, back home, though, there's been a big focus on immigration. Now, this is something that your party, the opposition, has been driving for a long while. Immigration is out of control, and the government has proposed this cap on foreign students to bring it under control. Why on earth wouldn't the coalition support this, given you've been arguing to cap these numbers for so many months?
So I think what you need to do here, Chris, is just take a step back. We've had net migration of 1 million people since this government was elected, but only 350,000 new houses built. We have always said this is about pressure on housing stock, pressure on rental stock. And what Peter Dutton said some time ago now was that he would sit down with the universities and work out what was an appropriate level that we could actually take into this country. We are firm believers in international education. It is a thriving Australian export, but it must be done carefully and in moderation and in lockstep with investment on infrastructure. You have to remember, this is the government that's actually cut infrastructure. I lost $225 million for a rail line and $75 million for a freeway overpass.
But hang on a second, let me interrupt. Let me interrupt, Zoe McKenzie. There is too much immigration. It's too high now. That's what Peter Dutton has been saying. Even Labor admits that now. You cannot reduce immigration in this country without reducing the number of international students. It's not the only option. More needs to be done. But why wouldn't the coalition support a cap on foreign students?
Because the way they've gone about it is absolute chaos. I have had universities on my doorstep in hysterics, regional and city-based universities, saying the first time they knew what their cap was going to be was the day they turned up to give evidence in a Senate inquiry about the impact of these new laws. It has been so cack-handed from a government that also gave you NZYQ, mind you, and hundreds of detainees roaming around the country who'd been convicted of murders or sexual assaults, the same people that gave you 2,500 tourist visas for people coming from a war zone in the Middle East. It has been one crisis after another in this portfolio for the Albanese government. And frankly, this is just another example of how they can't manage their own lunchbox.
You can't run
much more carefully.
They are a shocking government. You can't run the government for them, but you can vote with them to give them a tool that would be useful to use when it comes to immigration. Otherwise, you have the Education Minister, Jason Clare, making a claim like this.
Never in my life did I expect to see this opposition leader get into bed with the Greens on immigration, but that is exactly what is happening.
He's right, isn't he, Zoe McKenzie? You'll be voting with the Greens to block this legislation.
I don't think that's by design, Chris. I only found out that the Greens were also opposed to it when I looked up the legislation this afternoon to work out where it was at in the chambers. But nevertheless, Peter has been very clear on what is a responsible migration policy, and that is to reduce net migration to 140,000 in years 1 and year 2, 150,000 in year 3 and 160,000 in year 4. But we will do that methodologically and in lockstep with infrastructure planning, not this chaos that we have seen across the portfolio for 2 years.
Thanks for joining us, Zoe McKenzie. I appreciate it. Zoe McKenzie there, the Liberal member for Flinders in Victoria, joining us live from Canberra. We'll hear much more about this debate in the days, weeks and even months to come.